Mike Yurcich is now available. So is a shot at the Big 12 title for Oklahoma State. Whatever Beni Tonga is getting paid, pay that man more money. Because no matter how you felt about UCF or your feelings towards Houston, we all get to breathe a sigh of relief because in the recruiting realm, we got our guy.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You know we're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on Twitter at AllDayOState. Today we're partially brought to you by LinkedIn. It's a crapshoot nowadays trying to hire. So for small businesses, you need to get with LinkedIn Jobs. It's going to help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So as we all seem to be licking our wounds, inevitably so, from the UCF game, there's not a lot to diagnose when it comes to film, right? The turnovers were untimely. The turnovers were inevitably what ended up killing us in this game, other than just being caught flat-footed and kind of unprepared. But no matter how you feel about the UCF game, no matter how you feel about the game coming up against Houston, everybody gets to breathe a little sigh of relief because in the recruiting landscape, Oklahoma State's doing significantly better than previously because of one guy. It's crazy to think that one guy can really make a big difference, but we've seen what Lando Cleveland is able to do on the defensive side of the ball, right? He's been the kind of quarterback of the class that has helped bring other people into the fold. Not only that, he's been very instrumental in some of the guys from the state of Texas who have already committed in them getting to Stillwater as often as possible, as many times as you can. Doesn't have to be official recruiting. It can be unofficial. He's kind of the catalyst that has helped some of that kind of take off alongside somebody like a Gunnar Wilson. Malachi Smith is the quarterback that everyone has been talking about. I do think that we put a lot of chips, or a decent amount of chips, as far as the fan base is concerned, into getting somebody like Isaac Wilson. But as we all know, he decided to take his talents elsewhere, which is fine. Because then we end up in the situation we are now. Our 4-star guys, Lando Cleveland, now Malachi Smith, 6'4", 205-pound quarterback out of Juniper, Sierra, same school that Tom Brady played for. This is a guy that we've all kind of been looking at. Utah was obviously heavily invested. Came down to basically us and BYU. There were some other big-time Power 5 programs that made life a little interesting. But to go alongside Willie Nelson and Tamarick Johnson, and if you look at some other services, right, at one point in time, Trey Griffiths, wide receiver out of Keller, Texas, was a 5-star guy. Luke Webb is a defensive tackle who continues to climb as the season progresses. Had the opportunity to meet Caleb Hackelman and his family the other day. The Bedlam matchup, guys, he's going to be able to put on some weight. He's obviously very nimble, agile, mobile, and hostile. And so he's going to have some versatility at a multitude of tackle spots. Armstrong Nodum is a guy that we've had to kind of fend off from everybody else. He's a guy who can play a little bit of both inside and outside from the defensive line perspective. David Kabongo, he was somebody that the stars don't matter. Whenever you look at videos of him working out with people like Lando Cleveland, he doesn't look like a 3-star guy. And if you look at the offer sheet, it indicates that he's not much of a 3-star guy. Chauncey Johnson is a very underrated offensive lineman that popped a lot in some of the Oklahoma State camps that we were able to get into the fold. I do think not only is he a good offensive lineman, but he's somebody that should be competitive right away to push for a little bit of playing time. Rodney Fields is the scat back, the dynamic running back that we can have to come in, be kind of somebody like a Kittle Hunter, somebody like even a Jalen Warren, right? We could talk about Sessi, but he's not part of this class, right? As another potential Jalen Warren-esque guy. Jonathan Igumidu, very long, very rangy, very intelligent. Gunnar Wilson is a linebacker / safety / tight end / fullback who does a little bit of everything, who can do a little bit of everything, even at this next level. I firmly believe in that. Josh Ford, underutilized tight end out of Stillwater, Oklahoma. The blocking side of things isn't going to be much of an issue. He looks a lot like Josiah Johnson without the quarterback pedigree. The receiving side of things, I think, is going to continue to get better for him. And then we're sticking in the same vein of Beni Tonga helping bring guys in like Samishi Tonga and Luku Mafi. Micah Kapana, right? Ended up going to Michigan, but he had us in our top 3 because of guys like Beni Tonga. But this quarterback that we were able to get, it speaks volumes to the future success at the quarterback position for Oklahoma State. Whether or not Alan Bowman gets his 7th year, we're still kind of waiting to find out. Now, what that does is it makes a determination on kind of what the others in the room are going to be able to do, what their prognosis is for the future, because everybody knows Zane Flores walked into the building at 6'3", 205 pounds. He is doing very well. I know there's a lot of young receivers that have their flag planted and him being a large focal point of the future. But then you have a very serviceable guy in Garret Rangel, who is a game manager, could have been the guy all year this year, because we just saw with Alan Bowman, he does a lot of things. Whenever things are going well for Oklahoma State, Alan Bowman's precisely what you want. But when things break down and you have to do a little bit more, a little bit extra, and you got to do something that's a little bit different, I think Garret Rangel would be able to provide that spark. Gunnar Gundy's always going to be a team first guy. He's always going to be a Cowboy. He's always wanted to be in this position. He isn't going to go anywhere. He's always going to be a serviceable guy that we can put in no matter what happens, that can run the show pretty convincingly. But us getting Maealiuaki Smith, we've been talking about him being a Cowboy for a couple months now. Obviously, there was a lot of people that poked their head in to make this a little bit more interesting, especially towards the end here. But it was always basically a 2-man race between us and BYU. Now, when you think of where he is at geographically and why he decided to come to Oklahoma State over BYU, and I would say that that's because Oklahoma State is more ready right here, right now, to play at a bigger stage and provide a little bit more, not only from the facilities, not only because of Rob Glass, but realistically, this combine thing that the Big 12 has been able to put together because of Brett Yormark exclusively with the NFL, that's going to do a lot of good. It is. But also, what you do individually, it's going to be a little bit on a bigger scale. The Holy War is going to provide some things as far as recruiting goes for both Utah and BYU. But I think Maealiuaki Smith saw the advantages of Oklahoma State as opposed to BYU. BYU's in a good spot, but BYU's probably still going to be a little while longer till they have the 2 deep that can play for titles. We're still in a position to possibly play for a title. We don't control our own destiny anymore, but we're going to talk about that a little bit more real quick, y'all. We talked in the very beginning about being caught flat-footed. Well, sometimes it can lead to you being caught with 1 foot or no-footed. Don't be that guy. Don't be Cody. Make sure that you have life-saving medications readily available for you and your family on a 24/7 basis. Because we've been able to cover a lot of things in our time together, but you know about my lackadaisical nature put me in the position that I'm in right now. You don't have to worry about that with Jase Medical. Jase Medical is going to give you access to everything, no matter what the supply chain issues present. And it doesn't matter what ailment, seems to be bothering you most. But right now, if one of those ailments that seem to be affecting you in your life is ED, you can get a 1-year supply on ED medications, right? Bring extended travel, a whole new meaning. Bring on the next day natural disaster, whatever the supply chain issues are. It doesn't matter. We've got you covered. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis and Viagra. It is possible because of our friends at Jase Medical. Go there now. Use Jase Medical to receive a 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use the promo code Locked On at checkout for a discount as well. If you or someone you love seems to need more peace of mind by having a year supply of any daily medication, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use that promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Do not be caught unprepared, flat-footed, one-footed, no-footed. You should be empowered to take care of yourself and your loved ones during unexpected times. Make sure you go visit Jase Medical now to get your needs squared away at jasemedical.com. Make sure you use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. So we've had discussions this year about some of the coaches that were underperforming, even in the times where Mike Gundy was definitely part of that list. Tim Rattay's on that list. Charlie Dickey's on that list. Coach McIndoe's on that list. These are guys who, up until this season, hadn't really done anything. At least hadn't done anything worth a paycheck. Now, I've heard from several players that the common consensus is Tim Rattay is beloved, as is J.W. Walsh, as is Coach Wozniak, as is Rob Glass to a lot of people. But a name that doesn't get talked about enough is Beni Tonga. And when you think of guys like Jalen Warren coming back to hang out with Benny and Coach Woz and Rob Glass, it allows us to get better guys. Look at Sessi. Sessi got the ball a few times the other day. I think the future looks really, really bright for him at the running back position. Played with the same coach, not at the same place, but the same coach for Jalen Warren. Has that Jalen Warren connection personally. And then if you just look at the recruiting acumen of Oklahoma State over the years, geographically speaking, it was all fairly limited. We recruit the Samoan or Polynesian culture significantly better now than ever before. We're getting guys from Utah and California more now than ever before. And with this newest get in Maealiuaki Smith, this was like the domino for recruiting that all of us were waiting and hoping would fall. The longer it took, the more it felt like other teams were able to kind of barge in there. This was a good time for the announcement. Everybody's licking their wounds after the UCF game. So thank you, Maealiuaki Smith, for making life a little bit easier for everybody in Oklahoma State Nation. But whatever Beni Tonga is getting, pay that man. It was the last Big 12 Mafia show that we did. You know, they had mentioned that we just got a couple offensive linemen that were both very highly sought after by Utah and BYU. This is another one. There's no pretending that BYU needed this guy. BYU put a lot of stock into getting Maealiuaki Smith, as did we. You know, I think we had a comfortable backup option. And I do still think that River Warren should potentially pursue maybe looking at Oklahoma State University. I know he's going to have a plethora of other options. But if BYU and Utah are already tired of Oklahoma State getting these guys, I'm sure that they hoped being in the conference would actually help them. And then we land Maealiuaki Smith. Go watch the film. Guys, Maealiuaki Smith is worth every penny. He's the last highly rated quarterback, basically this side of the Mason-Dixon line, that hadn't committed. And this is in large part due to Beni Tonga. When all the craziness with Mike Gundy was going on, there was a handful of coaches that we knew, no matter what, we could not let go. Beni Tonga is definitely top of that list. So the recruiting acumen that he has, if you couple that with Coach Nardo and the doors that he's going to be able to open, once again, this is precisely why capitalization is crucial. We have the recruiting guys on staff, including Tim Rattay, that can get into big-time living rooms, that can get big-time recruits to legitimately consider Oklahoma State. I think you're seeing that even with Kobe Black, who's 5-star, can go anywhere he wants. Anywhere in the United States of America that plays the game of football, Kobe Black can go to. And Oklahoma State was never on his list. And now we're seeing a little bit more out of him. We're hearing some things kind of on the down low that it looks pretty good in that department because of some of the guys that we have. This well-oiled machine, this Cowboy culture, needed a shot in the arm. It appears as though that we have received that. Now, this UCF loss, it's very fair to question some sections of leadership because having a letdown, yeah, it happens. When you always hear that when a letdown happens, it's traditionally because of the leadership inside the locker room. But those are the same guys that pulled us out of the ashes after Iowa State and got this train back on the tracks. And then obviously the other coaches and Mike Gundy provided a lot of coal to get this thing rocking and rolling. Then it derailed. And it derailed pretty seriously. And that wasn't even a competitive game. Like, I don't understand how anybody before that game that was like, well, Oklahoma State's overrated. The Big 12's overrated. Could look at that game and think anything other than that. So UCF did. They made us look really bad, which unfortunately does make the conference look bad. But hey, shout out to them. Kudos to them. What they did to Ollie Gordon, nobody's been able to do. And even with a little bit of an injury, it still was absolutely ridiculous what they were able to do to us. And when you go back and look over it, we just got beat all across the board. There wasn't really any positions that did anything extraordinary other than maybe, there was a couple grabs that Leon and BP had, and even Rashad Owens that were a big deal. Guys, that was Alan Bowman's worst game by far. Even the games where he only got to sprinkle in, a few snaps here and there. His decision-making was very, very slow, like super, super slow. Even in some of the throws that weren't picks, they were just ugly and they were late. And it took really good efforts by the wide receivers to even make it look like it was remotely where the ball should have went. Which is another reason why getting Malachi Smith is huge. I'm a big believer still yet in Garret Rangel. I know the fan base and the locker room is extremely excited about the progress of Zane Flores. We know what Gunnar Gundy will always be able to provide. Whether Bowman gets this 7th year or not, we're in good hands moving forward. Is there a likelihood that if Bowman comes back, we might lose one of our guys? Yeah. But that's why getting somebody like Malachi Smith is massive, because we put a lot of chips into this dude, as did BYU. And what that looks like for the future kind of hinged on his decision. So this is massive. So shout out to Coach Rattay. I know you're like a whisperer when it comes to the recruiting ranks, and these guys absolutely love you. Same with Mike Yurcich and Beni Tonga. Doesn't get enough love. J.W. Walsh doesn't get enough love. Coach Wozniak, we're trying to give as much love as physically possible, but he still doesn't get enough. I don't know. But I do know that our offense took a big step back against UCF. And we also know that Penn State fired Mike Yurcich. So he's available. Now, does that mean that he's a good hire, the right hire, where we should go? I don't know. Mull that over for a second. While you're mulling that over, let's think of getting our main man, Mike Yurcich, hooked up with LinkedIn, right? Because he needs a job. And if you're looking to hire and you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. It's going to help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you got to do is create a job post and then add it to the purple hashtag hiring frame with all the simple tools and screening questions. It'll make it super easy for you to focus on the candidates with the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you want to interview and hire first. This is why small businesses ranked LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus all the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find the qualified candidate you want faster and for free. Go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today. Terms and conditions do apply. So just because Mike Yurcich is available, does that make him a likely or a necessary candidate to view him? Yes. The answer is absolutely yes. Zach Robinson is about to get an OC job in the NFL, so he ain't budging. Casey Dunn is completely inept at this job. And that's fact by the amount of people that you've had to bring in this year, including yourself, Mr. Mike Gundy, to try to get this offense to some semblance of productivity. So no matter what happens, we know that Casey Dunn is just too far out of his depths. He cannot handle all of the workload he's received. And even during the simplification of Gundy diving back in, you still can see massive deficiencies offensively. So, yeah, I think wholeheartedly we should bring Mike Yurcich in. And I don't give 13 hoots what that means for Casey Dunn. I actually, at this point in time, I don't give 13 hoots if we lose Casey Dunn as a wide receivers coach, because Trayson Wallace has a better relationship any daggone ways, and the dude hasn't produced a Blitnikoff in a little bit. So it's like we're hanging on to the old times that Casey Dunn provided us with guys like Marcel Aitman and James Washington and Tyler Wallace. Let Trayson do it. He'll cost less. Players like him more. And at the end of the day, like there's only a certain number of things that you can teach a wide receiver. You know what I mean? I mean, there's always ways to get a little bit better, right? To sink your hips down a little bit lower, to deceive the cornerback and push up on his heels a little bit further. So there's little nuances of the wide receiver position you can continuously get better at. But I'm pretty sure we have enough talent at wide receiver that Trayson Wallace can produce a Blitnikoff. I mean, I could be a little over my skis here, but I don't know. I think it would be a good idea if you're not going to bring in Cale, right? If you're not going to officially bring in Cale Gundy to be the guy offensively, then yeah, bring Mike Yurcich back. Now, would Mike Yurcich want to come back? Who knows? I don't know how that whole kind of situation, ended with his time in Stillwater. But whatever Mike Yurcich was doing or not doing at Penn State is better than what Casey Dunn can do in Stillwater. So I think it's a no-brainer. If you can bring him back, do it. If that means Casey Dunn's gone, later, Tater. Because we still have a lot to chase down. And while we do chase down, we'll have a pretty good hand in what the recruiting looks like for the remainder of this football season. Getting Malachi Smith was massive because now you have Lando Cleveland as the quarterback on that side of the ball, who's been not only helping get guys to Stillwater, but he's been helping maintain the guys that are already committed. Now you have Malachi Smith. What keys can he turn to help us get a few more guys? Some, right? You don't become that good and have that high of a profile and go to camps and circuits and 7-on-7 stuff and not develop adequate relationships. So we'll see what that does. But again, capitalization. This loss by UCF, it hurts. It sets us backwards in the capitalization, right? The continuous momentum we were building. You got to take care of business now. You beat Houston. You end the season with BYU, with Malachi Smith on hand. And then you roll into a bowl game. Likely a pretty decent bowl game. So 10 wins is still a possibility. And no matter what anybody says, no matter what bowl game you play in, That's like 20, 25 extra practices that every other team in the country that didn't get a bowl didn't get. Now, obviously, the later your bowl date, the more practices, right, the better off you are. If you're like the very, very first bowl game, doesn't really do you a lot of good. You did get a little bit of extra practices in, which is always good for the young cats. But winning a Big 12 title is still very much within reach. It's very reasonable. So is getting Mike Yurcich. Let me know down in the comments section what you think about the Yurcich scenario. Should we go after him? Not. Anyways, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. And as always, thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. Later, taters.